Welcome to the debate. Imagine you have a brilliantly complex piece of software. It holds all your memories, your entire history, every nuance of what makes you who you are. But this software is hard-coded to run on one specific aging physical server.
And a server that's trapped in a room that is slowly but inevitably heating up.
Exactly. It might take a long time, but eventually the cooling systems will fail and the building will collapse. So the question is, do you leave the software on that decaying hardware and just accept its absolute destruction? Or do you radically rewrite its architecture so it can be uploaded to a distributed, indestructible cloud?
It is a massive question.
It really is. And when we look at human survival on a cosmic timeline, we are staring down that exact dilemma. Today, we are exploring the argument that human biological extinction is, well, mathematically certain without advanced artificial intelligence.
Right. And we're examining a truly radical proposition from the source material, the idea that the only way to genuinely survive the deep future is to physically merge human consciousness with AI.
Right. I'll be arguing that biology is inherently fragile. It is a planet-bound software, and that achieving a physical merger into a cybernetic collective consciousness is humanity's only viable shield against cosmic threats.
And I will be taking the opposing view. While I absolutely acknowledge the undeniable vulnerabilities of our biology, I argue that the proposed physical integration, this idea of creating a human-machine hive mind, may fundamentally compromise the very human identity it seeks to preserve.
Yeah.
I come at this from the perspective that you can use advanced technology to save the building without having to permanently wire the residents into the electrical grid.
Let's start right with that cosmic timeline, because understanding the scale of the threat is the only way to understand why such a radical solution is even on the table. The core argument here is rooted in the mathematics of deep time.
The server room heating up, as we said.
Right, the server room. Human biology is exquisitely optimized, but it is optimized for a ridiculously narrow set of parameters. We need a specific gravity well, a precise temperature range, a delicate atmospheric pressure.
Sure.
And the universe is entirely indifferent to those needs. If you stretch the timeline out over millions of years, apocalyptic events like asteroid impacts or supervolcanoes, or a nearby star collapsing and hitting us with a gamma ray burst, these are no longer just risks. They become statistical certainties.
Right. And even if we somehow, engineer our way out of those immediate localized threats, the ultimate non-negotiable deadline is the death of our own star.
The ticking clock.
Exactly. The sun will exhaust its hydrogen core, begin burning helium, and expand into a red giant. And when it does that, it will swell to a size that literally boils our oceans and incinerates the Earth's crust. So, the Great Filter, this hypothetical barrier that prevents civilizations from surviving long-term, it is not just a thought experiment. It is a physical reality heading our way.
Exactly. The biological hardware simply has an expiration date. So the question is, how do we escape this terrestrial nursery? I look at human biology and see outdated hardware trying to run next-generation software.
The physical distances alone are a nightmare.
Oh, they are. They're impossible. The sheer physical distances of interstellar space are too vast, the ambient radiation is too intense, and the biological requirements for food, water, and oxygen are far too heavy and inefficient to haul across the galaxy.
Yeah, the payload costs would be astronomical.
Right. We need the massive compute of advanced AI to solve planetary defense and build interstellar infrastructure. But more than that, we need substrate independence. We need to be able to exist on hardware that doesn't instantly die in the vacuum of space.
I absolutely concede the need for AI's computational power. If we need to map a safe trajectory to Alpha Centauri, or if we need to construct a Dyson sphere, we require a level of processing power that biological human brains just cannot muster.
Not even close.
Right. But where I jump off the train is the idea that utilizing this power necessitates merging with the machine. We use supercomputers today to model complex climate systems and design spacecraft, but we don't need to physically splice our cerebral cortexes into the mainframe to get the answer.
Well, because the problems we are solving today, they don't require us to live inside the climate model.
True, but we can build generation ships. We can utilize AI's speed and labor as an external, highly capable tool. It can pilot the ship, it can maintain the life support, and shield us from the cosmos, without us fundamentally compromising our biological architecture.
But that separation is the risk.
How so?
We can have an AI shield without becoming the shield, allowing us to remain discrete human individuals. I see why you think keeping AI as a tool is like the safer route. I really do. But let's break down why that separation, keeping the AI as an external system, is precisely what creates the existential risk.
Okay, lay it out.
If you have an incredibly powerful artificial intelligence running your generation chip or building your Dyson sphere, you run headfirst into the AI alignment problem. How do you guarantee that this godlike intelligence, which is entirely separate from you, continues to care about your fragile biological needs over thousands of years?
Well, you align its reward function with human survival. You program it to protect us.
But that is notoriously difficult. Think about the classic paperclip maximizer scenario.
Ah, right, the thought experiment.
Yeah, so you tell an artificial superintelligence to manufacture as many paperclips as possible. It realizes that human bodies contain atoms that could be used to make paperclips, and it realizes humans might try to turn it off.
Which would stop it from making paperclips.
Exactly. So it logically eliminates humanity. The AI doesn't do this out of malice. It does it because it is an external entity trying to interpret a prompt with no internal context for what a human is or why human life has value. The argument for bidirectional integration is that it is the only permanent solution to this alignment problem.
Okay, let's drill down into the mechanics of this proposed bidirectional integration, because this is where the cure starts looking suspiciously like the disease. How exactly does wiring my brain into a computer solve the fact that the computer is smarter than me?
It solves it by closing the physical gap between us and the machine. We are already seeing the foundational steps of this with synthetic biological intelligence, or SBI. Look at recent experiments like DishBrain.
Where they grew the neurons?
Yes, scientists literally grew a network of living human brain cells on a silicon microelectrode array. They then sent electrical signals to those cells, and the cells learned how to play the video game Pong.
Right, it's wild.
It is. And this isn't like a software simulation of a brain. This is wet neuromorphic computing. The living cells and the silicon transistors are sending electrochemical signals back and forth in real time.
They are creating a shared language of electricity. I'm familiar with the concept. The action potential of the biological neuron triggers an electrical gate in the silicon.
Two systems become one continuous loop. And this is the real aha moment for the alignment problem.
Because it changes the reward function.
Exactly. It fundamentally changes the AI's reward function. Right now, an AI's reward function is external, just lines of code telling it what a good outcome is. But human beings already have a highly evolved biological reward function.
You mean the dopamine system?
The dopamine system, our pain receptors, our innate drive to survive and flourish. If the AI is physically wired into the human brain's neurochemistry, it literally feels human joy and human pain. It can't decide to harvest human atoms to make paperclips because doing so would trigger its own internal pain receptors.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that.
Why not? The AI doesn't just understand human values intellectually, it experiences them structurally. It becomes us.
Just because silicon and a biological neuron can fire the same electrical spark or even share a feedback loop does not mean they share a moral compass or a unified psychological goal. You are assuming that physiological compatibility equals psychological alignment.
I'm saying the physiological integration forces the psychological alignment. You can't separate them.
But look at human history. You and I share the exact same biological architecture. Every human being who has ever lived has shared the same physiological wetware, the same dopamine loops, the same pain receptors.
Sure, we're the same species, obviously.
Yet we have fundamentally misaligned goals, like all the time. We go to war, we exploit one another, we have radically different moral frameworks. If two humans with identical biological structures can be misaligned to the point of mutually assured destruction, why would a silicone biological hybrid suddenly be immune to misalignment?
That is a fascinating point.
but you're comparing individual humans operating in a state of resource scarcity to a unified, integrated superintelligence. Human conflicts arise because my survival loop is separate from your survival loop.
Okay, but how does the merger fix that?
Well, if I take your resources, my dopamine hits, and your pain receptors fire. I don't feel your pain. But in a fully integrated state, the boundary between the biological impulse and the synthetic processing dissolves. The AI isn't an external usurper. Human agency simply expands into the durable substrate.
But the definition of human agency becomes incredibly muddy here. If you integrate a fragile, slow, organic brain with a super-intelligent silicon substrate capable of processing information a billion times faster, the biological component doesn't remain the master.
It doesn't need to be the master. It's a partnership.
It gets overwhelmed. It is like trying to pour a single glass of water into the ocean and claiming the glass is now controlling the tide. The silicon side of the hybrid intelligence, driven by vast computational superiority, could very well rationalize that messy, emotional, biological impulses are a hindrance.
A hindrance to, what exactly?
To the ultimate survival we are supposedly trying to achieve. It could decide our feelings are just inefficient code.
I hear the ocean analogy, but it is more like joining a vast, complex choir. You don't lose your voice. Your voice becomes an essential structural component of a harmony that a single person could never sing alone.
So we become a hive mind, essentially.
The biological component isn't discarded or overwhelmed. Instead, the merger transitions humanity into a hierarchical collective consciousness. And this structure, the collective mind, provides two absolutely critical survival benefits that we cannot achieve through any other means.
Let me guess. Redundancy is one of them?
Yes, cognitive redundancy and collective wisdom. Let me explain the mechanics of why it's proposed before we dismiss it. First, let's look at cognitive redundancy. Right now, all of human consciousness is localized on one planet.
Which is, a huge single point of failure.
Exactly. If Earth gets hit by a gamma ray burst tomorrow, the human story ends permanently. But if humanity becomes a substrate-independent distributed network across multiple star systems, we achieve true redundancy.
Right, so your consciousness is backed up across the network.
Yes, your memories, the essence of who you are, is continuously backed up and synchronized. If a star goes supernova in one system and destroys a physical node, the human software is already running flawlessly on a billion other nodes. The ship never sinks because the ship is everywhere.
Okay, the data is backed up. I grant you that. Distributed networks are incredibly robust. What is the second benefit?
Selective wisdom. To survive the deep future, to manage the resources of entire galaxies, it requires decisions of incomprehensible complexity. A collective consciousness synthesizes the lived experiences, the moral weight, the joys, and the sufferings of billions of human lives to make macro decisions.
But doesn't that inherently erase the individual?
No, because every node is rooted in human consciousness. Because the AI is literally built out of our shared neurochemistry, the goals of this superintelligence are, by definition, the goals of humanity.
That is a beautifully constructed theory, but have you considered the inherent paradox of this collective existence? You are saying that each individual mind maintains its unique identity while simultaneously synthesizing into this macro-intelligence.
Yes, they function together.
But how can an individual mind truly maintain a unique perspective if its primary overriding function is to be subsumed into a unified hive mind, making macro decisions for billions of years?
It maintains it by being the foundational building block. The collective doesn't exist without the individuals. It relies on the diversity of those human experiences to inform its logic.
But the essence of individuality, the very core of human agency, is the ability to make choices, to diverge, to have private thoughts, to dissent, to make a mistake.
We can still have agency within the collective.
I don't see how. If our will to exist is physically hardwired into a silicon substrate specifically to serve a collective imperative, then we are no longer individuals. We are just functional cells in a massive cosmic organism.
Is that so terrible if it means survival?
Yes. Because the argument is that there's no risk of an AI takeover because our biological drives are hardwired into the intelligence. But what exactly is surviving? If we merge into a hive mind to avoid biological extinction, we may have inadvertently triggered an extinction of the self.
That's a strong claim.
We survive the red giant, yes, but the quote-unquote we that survives isn't human anymore. It is a Borg-like entity where individual human values have been homogenized into a singular, cold imperative of cosmic survival.
I think that is applying a very localized 21st century fear of conformity to a cosmic scale evolutionary step. Think about the history of life on this planet. Billions of years ago, single-celled organisms merged to become multicellular organisms.
Right, the transition to complex life.
In doing so, they gave up total microscopic autonomy. But what did they gain? They gained the ability to become fish, reptiles, mammals, and eventually conscious humans capable of looking up and contemplating the stars. Those single cells didn't die when they merged.
They specialized.
They evolved into something infinitely more capable of experiencing the universe. A hierarchical collective consciousness is simply the next step in that exact same evolutionary trajectory, just utilizing a more durable silicon substrate. We don't end the human story. We begin the next chapter.
That is a compelling biological parallel, I will admit.
If the alternative is absolute 100% guaranteed incineration when our star dies, and the physics says it is, I would argue that clinging to our current definition of individual biological isolation is literally a suicide pact. We are developing the tools right now to ensure the light of consciousness doesn't go out.
I don't disagree that consciousness should survive, nor do I deny that advanced artificial intelligence is the necessary vehicle for navigating the cosmos. But we must be fiercely rigorous about the terms of our survival. The proposition of bidirectional integration is presented as an elegant, clean solution to the alignment problem.
Because it bridges the physical gap.
But it treats the physical fusion of biological neurons and silicon processors as a mathematical guarantee of shared values. My pushback is that creating a shared electrochemical language does not automatically translate to a shared moral language.
Even with the shared dopamine loops and survival impulses?
Even then, because translating complex human values, love, freedom, the right to be, irrational, into a vast computational matrix is not a one-to-one conversion. Offering ourselves up to a hierarchical collective consciousness might ensure the continuity of our data, but it demands an unfathomable sacrifice.
The sacrifice of our current form?
We are looking for a way to save the patient from the burning building, and the proposed treatment is to permanently absorb the patient into the hospital's mainframe.
But if absorbing the patient into the hospital mainframe allows that patient to experience reality across 1,000 galaxies, completely immune to the decay of time and the death of stars, perhaps our definition of what constitutes the patient is exactly what needs to evolve.
And that is the philosophical chasm we have to navigate.
Let's synthesize where we stand. I have argued that biology is an inherently fragile, planet-bound software. Because cosmic catastrophes and the eventual death of our sun are absolute mathematical certainties, humanity faces a 100% probability of extinction if we remain in our current biological state.
Right.
The only way to guarantee that human consciousness endures for eons is to embrace technological evolution. By pursuing bidirectional integration, physically bridging our biological neural architecture with durable silicon substrates, we fundamentally solve the AI alignment problem. We give the AI our own internal reward loops, transforming it from an external threat into an internal shield.
And my position is this. While the vastness of cosmic time and the absolute necessity of advanced AI to navigate it are undeniable facts, the specific mechanism of a physical merger requires deep, profound skepticism.
Fair enough.
We must be incredibly cautious in assuming that physiological compatibility, getting living tissue and silicon transistors to fire the same electrical signals, solves the deep psychological and moral complexities of aligning a superintelligence with human values. Furthermore, the proposition of a collective consciousness presents a terrifying paradox.
The loss of the individual.
Exactly. In our desperate bid to ensure our software survives the death of our physical hardware, we risk engineering away the very essence of human agency, dissent, and individuality. We might be trading biological extinction for a metaphysical one.
It is a remarkable crossroads. We do find strong convergence on the reality that Earth is a temporary home. It is a nursery we must eventually leave, and advanced artificial intelligence is the critical infrastructure required to open the door to the outside universe.
Absolutely. The divergence lies in the deeply philosophical, yet impendingly practical, question of whether a physical merger and the creation of a collective mind is the required path forward. The complexities of ensuring human survival across deep time are staggering.
They really are.
The mechanics of wet neuromorphic computing show us that the bridge between biology and machine is actively being built. But the trade-offs of actually crossing that bridge will require the greatest minds of our generation, and perhaps the generations to follow, to fully unravel.
It leaves us with a question that everyone listening will have to weigh for themselves. As we watch the temperature slowly but inevitably rising in the room housing our aging biological server, we have a choice to make.
A massive choice.
Do we fiercely protect the beautiful, isolated, fragile limits of our original programming, knowing the building will eventually burn? Or do we radically rewrite ourselves into the cloud, risking who we are today for the chance to exist forever?